Hello everyone and welcome to episode 28 of the BritHick with Connor and Aaron. How are you feeling this week, Connor, after your first week of being very well, I don't know what the best way to put it, a strict regimen, I think is the best way to say about it.
Yeah, I guess like just super disciplined. So yeah, I started back at the gym on Monday, haven't trained for like 2 years, and just been super clean eating, literally just like eggs, rice, chicken, spinach, just drinking water and like black coffee really. And I've just been doing loads of fucking walking as well. I've walked like 20,000 steps every day this week, so my feet are pretty shambles right now. But I feel actually feeling good, man. I've got so much energy, like it's ridiculous. Like just changing my routine, having like a strict, like a solid routine of going to bed at like a reasonable time and getting up like early in the morning has actually like been really good. And at work and stuff, I just had like so much more focus and what have you.
Are you finding it better to start work like not essentially rolling out of bed and going to work pretty much straight away? You're doing stuff beforehand.
Yeah, 100%. Like it just puts you in a better like mindset, and it just makes you more. It just focuses you a bit more because you've already been up and doing stuff. You know, like your brain's awake.
Yeah.
Like, and it's nice. It makes you like. I know it sounds very simple. It makes your day feel longer. Yeah, because you're awake for longer, but. It's the difference between being awake for a bit before work and but actually going and doing an activity. It's like, oh, I've actually got a bit more time to like enjoy myself.
Yeah.
You know, and like it, you know, basically I've been walking, like for context, I've been walking from home to the gym and then from the gym to work, just about 5.5 kilometers, each way. So I get to listen to like, obviously I listen to music on the way, so I've just been listening to like loads of music this week that I've either like taken too long to check out or bands that I've not listened to before. So that's been good.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just felt like probably the best I felt in ages, like in terms of like positivity and stuff. I just like just been, yeah, it's been good, man. And finding in the evenings as well, like it's nice winding down. Like I'll take the time to watch like a documentary or something. I don't feel like, oh, I've got to be rushing around to like cram as much as I can into my evening.
Yeah, okay. You feel like because you've done more in the morning before work that you don't need to do more after.
Yeah, it's like that. It's that combined with like, because the knock-on effect of like I felt so much more focused at work. I've done so much more at work. Like I feel like, and like achieved a lot more. So like in the evening, it's like, oh, I've done a lot today, so it's nice to like. It's weird. Like you shouldn't feel like you have to earn being able to relax. Like I think that's a dangerous mentality. Like you shouldn't feel guilty for relaxing, and I think that's a real toxic like byproduct of like capitalist society and the way the motion of life these days, like the pace of life. But what I'm saying is, it's not when you've done stuff all day. It's like nice to be like, right, I'm going to chill out now because I've, you know.
Because you've done stuff like, and you don't have a list of stuff to do outside of work.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just it's stupid. Like it's literally been like, this is the 5th day, and the difference is just like night and day. Like how I feel, like physically and mentally. Like that's not something I was really expecting.
Yeah. So originally you were going to do a lot more in the gym, but you're doing 3 days a week, and then the between days is cardio, right?
So basically, yeah, the original routine I was going to do was far too ambitious for someone who has not trained like weights for like over 2 years, and I was like, I'm literally going to burn myself out doing this. So I've the diet side of it I've kept the same, but the and it's not a massive amount of food. It is a calorie deficit. So it's not like eating to gain. Like so I'm not like eating loads of food and doing less of the workout. Like not that at all. but my cardio has basically been in the walking because it's like just obviously walking so much. So yeah, as of this evening, I'm just under like, and this isn't like I didn't set this out strictly; it just happened. But like as of this evening, I'm just under like 100,000 steps for the week so far.
Yeah. So with like the calorie deficit stuff, are you doing fasting as well, or is it still 3 meals?
Still 3 meals.
Okay. There was something else I was going to say, and I've just completely forgotten what it was. But with the because you're taking Daisy out to walk as well, aren't you?
Yeah, so that's what I do on my like quote unquote rest days. So obviously on a rest day you should still be active to some degree, if like depending on what your aims are. But yeah, so I take her out every morning anyway before I go to the gym. So I'll take her out for like 20-minute walk, and then I'll eat, and then I'll go to the gym. But on the Tuesdays and the Thursdays where I don't go and train, I'll take her out for like an hour and 20. Just go on like a massive walk first. Still get up at the same time. Still get up at 4:30. Walk her at that time, and then come back home. And it's been good for Aston as well because like Daisy's just sleeping like for most of the day rather than wanting to play when she's trying to work.
Yeah, so it wears her out to start with, and then she doesn't bother Aston throughout the day.
Yeah, and it's just nice in the morning, going out for that like long as well. And I don't mean it in a antisocial way, but there's like no one around, so it's like really peaceful.
Yeah, and I guess you've got less dogs to deal with as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't worry too much of her about that because she's actually really good with other dogs.
Okay.
Recently, she's been in heat, so we weren't taking her out at times when other dogs would be around. Because obviously, like they get more boisterous and stuff. It's just that's nature. But now we can go back to taking her to a normal walk. Cause it's just been nice going. Oh yeah, I can just take her out on this huge walk again, and it's not going to be an issue. It's. I think that just not to be too. I can't think of the word, but it's nice it is nice just to be outside and and like be in the fresh air and stuff. Like I think it's something we probably take for granted considering the last year, but I think something also we don't appreciate enough sometimes.
Yeah, I would say so. You can get sheltered, and you don't. I definitely do it. I have done it, where you spend too much time inside, and you just need to kind of like get out and have a walk.
Yeah,
and get outside of the four walls that you're sitting in 24 hours a day, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, it just helps like to clear your thoughts a bit.
Yeah, and how are you finding like the change of diet? Do you feel like any different? Obviously, you're saying you feel more positive, but like, are you feeling hungry throughout, or are you pretty like content?
Yeah,
in regards to hunger throughout the day.
Pretty content, to be honest. Today is the first time I've started like about 4 o'clock at work. I was like, I'm actually really hungry now.
Yeah.
But I guess obviously it's like it's been a week of doing this. Like, yeah, I've been walking so much. Like that was not a part of the routine where it was like, oh, you should do all this walking. It's like I'm just gonna fucking do loads of walking. So obviously I've been like it's gonna like work up over time. But it wasn't like, oh my god, I'm so starving, I need to eat now. And also the will like so for anyone, well, obviously I'll say for anyone who doesn't know me, yeah, for people who don't know me or whatever, like when I was younger, so about 7 years ago, probably it was the best shape I've been in. So I used to train like 5-6 times a week. I had like a lot more physical job. That was when I was doing the IKEA warehouse, like working at the IKEA warehouse, it's like picking kitchens and stuff like that. So I was a lot more muscular and like had so much more strength. And I was just doing physical stuff like all the time. And then I kind of stopped and never seriously got back into it. So in terms of the diet, like the regimen of eating like cleanly and eating the same thing day in day out is not it's never something that's really bothered me. I actually quite enjoy it. Like, I love food. Like, I really love food, and I love cooking all different meals and stuff. But then when it's a Monday to Friday thing, I really enjoy the convenience of knowing it's like, right, I know exactly what I'm having, and I've already cooked it.
Yeah, it's like a time and convenience thing versus having something different.
Yeah,
I guess.
I mean, I'm lucky in the way that I can enjoy like quite plain food, in terms of I don't need to like smother it in sauce to enjoy it. It's important to cook with herbs and spices and stuff, and know your onions in that regard. But you have to kind of change your attitude to food, and you need to look at it as fuel. Like,
yeah,
it's a bonus if you enjoy that, what you're putting in your body as well. Obviously, like, that's lucky on my part, I guess. But what I am gonna like let myself enjoy the weekends, not go crazy. Obviously, it's not gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get like takeaways and stuff, because that's just completely gonna negate the work that I've put in.
Yeah,
but
it defies the point.
Exactly. But like, for example, if it's like tomorrow night, I'm gonna make this like vegan biryani that we've had like a few times, and it's really nice. And I'll make like a chicken curry from scratch to have with like, we'll have that, a bit of that on the side and stuff. So we'll make the food fresh. Like, we do that anyway, but obviously when you've been cooking all week and stuff, sometimes it's nice to get a treat, like get a takeaway and whatever. But it's just like the end goal is obviously what I'm striving for. So that little extra bit of effort is worth it, and it's enjoyable. I mean, I like cooking and stuff anyway. I find it relaxing. So.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I know that, like, with everything that's happened in the last year, the lockdown and stuff, that people have kind of fallen into getting takeaways and stuff because they're not going out and all that kind of stuff. But I haven't really had the desire to get a takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off there.
No, it's just like, you know, some people was like, oh, it's the weekend, I'm going to have a takeaway, and it's like every week. It kind of makes it so that it's not a big deal, which it should be, because it's like, it's not a small amount of money.
No, it's not a small amount of money, and it's also, depending on what it is, it's pretty much like not gonna do you much good. Like, and it doesn't, obviously food shouldn't always be about, is it healthy? Like, food should be enjoyed, like, fundamentally. But obviously a takeaway should, like, pretty much by the by, is not giving you much nutrients and stuff that you actually need. And we started, that kind of happened for us because obviously in the peak of like lockdown last year, we just moved into the house and stuff, so that was like our treat. Oh, we'll get a takeaway like every 2 weeks, and then it started becoming like, oh, we'll get a takeaway every week. And recently when I've had one, I've just afterwards it's been like, oh, I kind of wish I hadn't had that. Like, I just feel like now I just feel all sluggish, and in the morning I feel like really dehydrated because of all the salt and everything.
Yeah, so I mean, the last one that I had was like a date night thing. So, and that was a new restaurant that's near me that's actually run by, or the company's run by someone that I went to school with.
Okay.
Like, they were in my form. So it was kind of like a support him because it's like a new venture. It's not local to him. It's like the first time that he's gone outside of his hometown.
Yeah.
And wanted to get something a bit different. And I had someone else to like get it with and stuff, but definitely, and that was like a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
And I haven't had we did that because it was a new restaurant.
Yeah.
And yeah, the only other time I've done that was like out of necessity because I didn't have any utensils, which was when I was like just moving in, so December.
Yeah, that was like similar for us. Like the first day we were moving in, and you guys come to help, so we ordered that pizza and stuff.
Yeah.
But
obviously, it's one of those horrible things. It's like you want to support, like I was saying, I did that to support someone.
Yeah.
And it's like you want to support smaller, independent food places.
Yeah.
Obviously, the problem is now, obviously, like chains now have delivery as well. But by and by, I would rather get something from a one-off restaurant.
Yeah.
Than a chain. But people do fall into that trap, and you see it on TV and think, oh, that's just like a caricature of a person. They can't be just buying takeout constantly. But then it's like my mum works with someone whose families literally they don't cook.
Wow.
Like it's pre-done stuff or takeaway.
That's crazy, man.
Like putting ingredients together to get something else like doesn't happen, and I couldn't imagine being like that.
Nah, I'd hate it. Like, I know it's quite strong, like a strong statement, but yeah.
Like I'm not a great cook, but I can throw stuff together and get something out that's edible at the other end.
Yeah.
So, and that's the main thing, isn't it? Is like you want to, and I think it's like kind of rewarding as well. I know that it like sometimes it can cause a mess. Like when I slow cooked a brisket 2 weeks ago, and like there was just so much in the way of like ingredients and stuff, and then you end up having to wash all the stuff up that you used to prepare it.
Yeah.
Along with handling raw meat and all of that stuff. But it's almost like the same reward when you like physically make something.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I really enjoy cooking for people.
Yeah,
because you get to share that with, like, sharing it with people is great. It's kind of like it's.
Do you get nervous?
Nah, I don't mean that in a cocky way. Like, I fucking love cooking, like, and like not to toot my own horn. Like, I know I'm pretty good at cooking. Like, yeah. No, I couldn't cook like every dish in the world. There's things I'm particularly good at, and you know, if we've got people coming over for dinner or whatever, it's like I'll pull out like something I'm sick at, providing they like it, and obviously they're not allergic to anything and whatever.
Yeah,
but yeah, the reason I got so into cooking was when I'm not anymore, but when I was younger and I went vegetarian for a few years. And I was just like, well, I don't want my parents, obviously still live with my parents at the time, like, to have to cook, like, extra meals for me. So I'll just learn to do it. And then, just that's what started it off, really. So it's kind of like choice and necessity, I guess.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of, like, because I was in and out of my parents' house from when I was 18, like, living in various places, it just ended up being that I learnt to cook.
Yeah. I mean, that was one thing that shocked me when I went to university. Like, a lot of people just didn't know how to cook, like, basically, like, look after themselves in that way, like, you know, even in, like, a basic capacity, just, like, cook basic meals and stuff. It's like, you're adults, like, I don't understand how you've kind of skipped this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I noticed it so much with, like, the people that I was with in halls, but I might have just not been paying attention. Like, so much other shit going on, so I don't really know what other people were cooking, potentially.
Yeah.
All I can remember is that a guy that was in my halls didn't like egg yolks, so he'd just have egg white omelettes.
Oof.
And I was like, that's the wrong part to like.
Yeah.
Like, the yolk's way better.
I don't understand why you'd have an egg white omelette for pleasure, rather than for health. Just don't have an omelette. Like, honestly, you're not missing out on much. Just not having egg white.
Just don't have eggs.
Yeah, just fuck
stop.
eggs off.
Yeah.
I tell you two things I've really noticed actually, in terms of the food. I haven't had any dairy at all this week. And I feel loads better. Like, I've got no bloating or anything. And I don't know if it's because of the dairy or what, but usually I get quite oily skin on like my forehead and stuff. It's not happened at all.
Okay.
So I think that's something I'm actually going to stick with. I don't go mad on dairy anyway, but predominantly I'd have it if I was having porridge, but I haven't been having porridge. And I don't really like oat milk anyway, so I'll just stick with that. And it's not like, I'm going to cut all dairy completely out forever. Like, if something's got cheese on it, I'm still going to have it, like, as a treat now and then. Or, you know, like an ice cream or a bit of, if someone gives me a tea or something with a bit of milk in, I'm not going to go, I can't have this. Like, but I've really noticed that's the only thing I can boil it down to, because I've still got wheat in my diet. Dairy is the big main thing that has not been present this week, and I've noticed a huge difference.
So I cut out, because I cut out breakfast, so cereals and milk in the morning, so I only have milk in tea, but I do have ice cream.
So
I don't know if I went back to having cereal, whether or not I would see a change again for having milk in the morning, but I don't know. Interestingly, I'm allergic. I found out yesterday, that I'm allergic to wheat pollen.
Oh.
So I don't know if I'm allergic to wheat or not.
Okay.
Because do you remember I was saying that, like, when I'm drinking certain beers, I can feel that, like, I have like a hay fever reaction?
Yeah.
And I thought it was like a hop thing, but I couldn't work out what it was. And maybe it's wheat. But then the beers that I was drinking, I don't know if they have wheat in, and I hope it isn't, because that's just going to be a fucking pain in the ass. If I was lactose intolerant, I'm just like, okay, no milk, no cheese. I can work that out. When it's like no wheat, it's one of those things where it's like, well, that's so much stuff.
Yeah.
Cereals, bread, like mainly like just carbohydrates in general.
All the good stuff.
So I'm kind of hoping that it isn't, it's just pollen, it's not actually wheat. But I'm sat here drinking bourbon and Coke, and again, I can feel that I'm talking through my nose, and it's like, well, I didn't have that with a different bourbon recently, but with this one, I can already feel it, and it's like, well, what the fuck? But yeah, I'm diverging. I guess we should move on to what we're actually talking about, or what we want to talk about.
Yeah. The new Cannibal Corpse album dropped today. Violence Unimagined. Popped it on this morning on my walk to the gym. And I was very very pleased to get it in my ears. I think it's the strongest album since Kill. Like, we were discussing it in the band chat earlier on. Definitely, and yeah, a lot more of the groove is back in it, and not as a point you made as well. It's not as mad technical as some of the more recent albums, and probably that's a lot of that to do with Pat not being there. But I wouldn't say that's a positive or negative thing. Like, obviously Cannibal Corpse have always had like a strong groove to them. It's something they've always been able to pull out. But I think it was like a very welcome thing to hear. Like, it wasn't what I was expecting.
Yeah, I was expecting more of the same in regards to the trajectory that they were going.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, with the member change, it was always going to be different. It was reasonably well known that Pat was the one that was doing the more technical riffing.
Yeah.
As folks who know the history of Cannibal Corpse a little bit more would know that Rob quit the band because he was having trouble keeping up with the trajectory of the way that the band was going the first time round. And then he came back. The interesting thing for me is that obviously Eric Rutan is back in, or not back in, but he's joined the band. And how many records did he produce for them?
Has it been everything since Kill? Or am I wrong?
I think he did Wretched Spawn as well.
No, he didn't do Wretched Spawn.
Oh, did he not?
No.
Was that Morris Sound?
I don't think it was Morris Sound, but I know it wasn't Rutan because I remember I watched the making of DVD so much.
Yeah.
I just can't. Was it Nigel Godrich who's produced that? I'm gonna wiki it quickly.
So they've known each other for a long time. He can he was playing as a live member because Pat is in prison, awaiting trial. I'm not sure what the situation is with Pat at the moment. Is he in rehab or?
I'll check that as well because I'm not 100% sure either.
In case anyone doesn't know, Pat, would you call it a mental break due to drug addiction?
Pretty much what it seems like, yeah.
Resulting in his house being burnt down, and originally it was that he had taken a family hostage, but it wasn't. He broke into a family's house, in a state of confusion, I guess would be the best way to put it. So whilst he recovers, Eric originally joined as a live member, so obviously he can play all the Pat O'Brien parts, but that technicality and his prowess isn't his particular writing style. So that particular kind of phonetic, over the top, lots of different chords going on at the same time isn't in the new album. One thing as well is that the bass isn't ridiculously loud. It seems like Alex's bass was just getting louder and louder throughout every record. I think it was the Skeletal Domain where it was just the loudest instrument.
Wow.
Just front and center bass clap, and it's not clacky. It's kind of gone back to kind of Bloodthirst era.
Yeah, that really kind of throaty, growly kind of tone.
Yeah, rather than it just being, because it got to a point where all you could kind of hear was the
the attack
of
the
attack of it. Whereas this, it isn't in it. And because it's less technical on the guitar riffing parts, it seems like that the bass is sitting in the pocket more.
Mm.
So there's still, is it Follow the Blood or Follower of Blood?
Follow the Blood.
Follow the Blood. At the end, there's a bass fill. It's about 3.5 minutes in.
Yeah.
And you can hear that it's definitely the bass.
Yeah.
And it's really obvious that it's there. And then when it goes back to everything being unison, it all kind of sits in the pocket again. And I think that works better on a songwriting standpoint rather than having everything all over the place and bass fills every 4 bars and loads of crazy shit going on. So we're not saying that it's a simple album.
No, yeah.
But just compared to how phonetic some of the recent albums have been, it's sitting more back, if you can call a Cannibal Corpse album laid back, in regards to songwriting, more straightforward, and yeah, it feels like the groove is like you can nod to it more compared to like some of the other stuff where there's just so much going on that you just kind of stood there trying to absorb it all.
Yeah.
Which is what I find with a lot of technical death metal is that you can't sit and groove with it because you kind of just your mental capacity is just being used to try and absorb the actual notes being played rather than the kind of groove of it.
Yeah, 100%. Like the yeah, I think there's a really strong focus on like just bigger riffs, like, you know, it's like riffs that form like the meat of the song, and like stick around for a little bit. It isn't just like, yeah, it isn't just whizzing past and like a flurry of notes kind of thing. And it's, I think it creates more of a mood in the songs.
Yeah.
It's quite like it's hard. The album is hard. Like there's many bits you're just like, oh yeah, like stank face. But it's quite menacing, you know.
I think the production has a lot to do with that, and I think that's one of the things why I think it's the best album since Kill. And for me, Kill is my favourite Cannibal Corpse album, predominantly because of the production. And I think it's because the production of Violence Unimagined is the closest to Kill has been in regards to like levels and stuff.
Right.
And guitar tone. One thing that I've seen people complaining about is that the kick drum isn't very loud.
Yeah.
Or that the drums are sitting quite low in the mix. But I didn't think that they were like sitting horrendously low in the mix.
No, and I didn't either. And I think people are so accustomed to like overly loud drums in mix now.
And I think the other thing as well is that the kick's there.
Yeah,
it's definitely there, but it's not triggered.
No,
it's like a thud kick.
Yeah,
like a kind of like 100 hertz. And it doesn't have a lot of that kind of like 1,500 like like click going on that loads and loads of bands have that, so that you get the double kick going and stuff. But Paul's never been a crazy double kick drummer.
No.
So there's not much of a point of having it. It's someone was like, imagine what these riffs would sound like with a good drummer. And it's like, and then the reply was, and I can't remember what this was on. The reply was, Paul's like the Lars of death metal. Like, he's perfect for that band.
Yeah.
Like, he's not the most accomplished drummer. Like, everyone knows that. But he's perfect for that band. And to try and put someone in that's more technically accomplished would probably be to the band's detriment.
Yeah, I mean, you said it before, especially in a material where there's so much going on in terms of like the guitar work and stuff. Like, you just need a solid beat, otherwise it's all just too much.
Yeah,
like you don't want the drums to compete with everything, and that's the thing. Like, primarily, the drums, and this isn't, I don't mean this as a detriment to drummers or the importance of the instruments. The drums are there as the foundation to everything. Yeah. And I personally feel like it's guitarists that make those comments more, because they don't really understand they don't really understand the function of drums and like what they should do, like to support a song. They're like, it'd be better with a better drummer. They just want to hear fills all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas like
the thing is as well is that like I feel like in extreme music that the actual act of songwriting isn't really there.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of cases of that. That's definitely true. And I think that's the thing with Cannibal Corpse as well. They've got such a catalogue of like very good songs. Like, and that's why they've been so enduring. There's bands who can play like, and I don't say this in a small. Well, I say there's bands who play circles around. That's not really fair because they're very technically accomplished. There's bands who are more technical, but the songs aren't anywhere near as good.
Brain drill.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one that everyone goes through in regards to like overly technical death metal.
I mean, personally, music like that does nothing for me at all. Yeah. Like, I can respect the craft and like the dedication to getting that technically proficient at your instrument. But it's like, I'd rather not listen to it. Like, to me, it's just like, and it's not even like, oh, you just saying actually you can't follow it. It's like, no, I can follow it. It just isn't enjoyable. It's like someone's thrown a fucking Casio into a blender. It's just it's too much. It's just like, okay, great.
It's too much to understand, and you can't enjoy it because you're trying to process it.
Yeah, it's to me, to music like that is music for the sake of it. It's like, oh, how technical can we make this?
Well, it was like the beatdown stuff. It was like, how heavy can it get?
Yeah,
and then it gets to a point of like beyond parody.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is the thing. Like, it's all of that is taking any one element to an extreme, which is detrimental to the song as a whole, or like your catalogue as a whole, if that's all you're doing.
Yeah, I don't think we've had, obviously, because we write songs, have written songs. There have been parts where we're looking at tracks and gone, this section, like, you have to start pulling stuff out.
Yeah.
For the betterment of a song, for the flow. It's like, throw a solo in every song. It's like, well, does the solo work in the song? No. It feels tacked on.
Yeah.
Pull it out then. Like, it doesn't matter if it's, oh, I've spent 2 weeks trying to write that. I was like, well, tough tits, it doesn't work.
Yeah, you've got to be brutal in the writing process, like 100%.
Yeah. So, and I think the thing as well is that when I was saying about it being laid back, it's a lot to do with the drums, because they know, it's almost like it knows when to kind of go half time.
Yeah.
And then it just makes everything like heavier. And I'm a sucker for that guitar tone anyway. I think it's like the best death metal guitar tone going.
Just thick, innit? So fat.
And one of the things as well that they rely on quite a lot in this album, which I think is more in the older albums, is the use of like down-tuned octaves.
Yeah.
In riffs with like sliding up with octaves and stuff.
Yeah.
And with that guitar tone, it's just like the best sound going.
Just sounds like the earth yawning.
Yeah, it makes. Yeah, and because of that, it gives it like a slur, which makes you think of. It's not the same as Morbid Angel, but you know, because you're sliding up to a note, it slurs the timing.
Yeah.
And with the slower Morbid Angel songs, there's a lot of like slurred riffs because Trey is crazy.
Yeah.
And then with the groove and stuff, it's not as groovy as Obituary, but it's a similar kind of thing where the drums are quite simple, so that there's something for people to lock onto.
Yeah.
Because if you just have bomb blasts throughout everything, everyone's going to be like, well, what the fuck am I meant to bump my head to?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And there's a thing as well to be said about like having like tension and release for stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
Because there's always the thing of like, oh no, I want it 100% all the time. It's like, but a fast bit doesn't sound fast unless there's also slower bits.
Yeah.
And the slower bits won't sound as slow and heavy if you don't have a fast bit, so that you can kind of go in and out. So it's almost like, I guess it could be like the modern version of dynamic change.
Yeah.
Because everything's compressed to fuck, so everything's really loud. However, if you do fast sections into low sections, it almost has a similar effect to how in classical music you would have a small amount of instruments playing at one point, and then it all ramps up, and then it's the entire orchestra playing, and then it can kind of go down a bit. And obviously that's a lot more difficult with the way that things are compressed, because even the bits that are meant to be quieter are still the same level, but that's just the way that is. But it's doing a similar effect. Otherwise, you as a listener become desensitized, and it just kind of washes over you.
Yeah, it just becomes fatiguing to listen to as well. Just like if it's just the same thing, like it's just like a barrage. It's like, okay, like like it's funny actually, because I think less so in, well, I say like mainstream air quotes metal or whatever, even though it's not really, that's a bit of an oxymoron, but speed used to be like a real element of like, it used to be a competitive element of like a metal band, like, oh, how fast can you be? But it hasn't been like that for a while, but probably for good reason, because it's like a party trick, isn't it? Like, it's wicked, like playing like a well fast section and stuff. But yeah, it's when it's that all the time, it's just like, okay, it's like there's nothing to latch on to. It's like, for example, like, why is Ditto Head such a good song? Because of that sick break in the middle.
Yeah,
and exactly what you're saying. It sounds so hard because it comes off like that fucking absolutely breakneck like verse and stuff.
Yeah,
it's just like, oh, but.
Yeah, if it started with the middle bit, there wouldn't have the impact that it does, unless it comes off. If it's at the beginning, it wouldn't have the same impact as it does where it is in the song, because it's coming off of such a fast, quick vocal section.
Yeah,
to go into like and just listen to Ditto Head. It's the best Slayer song
from the best Slayer album.
Yeah, well, I flip flop between that and God Hates Us All.
Oh, just a second. I don't want to. Obviously, we can't trail off into Slayer, but it's the second half of God Hates Us All. I'm like, I'm not arsed on it, but Divine Intervention is my hat in the ring for the best Slayer album. Maybe that'll be an episode one day. Best Slayer album.
Just hear everyone in the background just being like, oh, it's Raining Blood or Seasons in the Abyss. It's like, no, it's not. No, it's not.
And the point of saying about the point of speed not being everything and like groove being so important. Really, you think, man, like, yeah, it's extreme metal and everything, but it all stems from the DNA of rock and roll, and that was about shaking your ass. So yeah, groove's so important.
As much as people want to say that no, I just want blast in my face all the time, it's like, no, you don't.
No,
like, you need to have
go to a grind all day and stay that afterwards. You won't.
Even the thing is though, even like, because I was thinking about this. Even grind bands, they break down into 2/8.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So or D beats, like it's.
I'm just being facetious.
Yeah. I have been to a few grind all days when I was playing in BTK, so it's like, and yeah, some of the bands, it was just gravity blasts all the time, kind of thing, and it's fatiguing. You can't. By the time it gets to like 20 minutes in, it's just too much. But the other thing you wanted to talk about as well, in regards to how Cannibal Corpse, it's going to sound really funny because we've just said about how much it sounds like previous stuff, but the lyrical content seems to have diverted.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that's been a trend. Well, a trend. I think this is something that's been a trend with their writing, at least for the last good last few albums, maybe even since, I know we keep referencing Kill, but maybe even since Kill, there's so much less, or even like none now, of what people would potentially see as misogynistic lyrical content, which is, for me, is cool. And I don't mean that in a way of like, I'm not going to be like, let's cancel Cannibal Corpse. I bloody love Cannibal Corpse, and if some of the older lyrics, I'm a bit like, oh, but I don't think they were the worst for it. In a way, with Cannibal Corpse, it was almost, you could always kind of tell it was like, right, this isn't from a place of sincerity, it's for shock factor. Whereas something we've discussed before is like, with some slam and stuff, I do kind of wonder, like, where does that line blur? Because some of it is so, it doesn't read as like tongue-in-cheek or like, oh, it's so far-fetched or whatever. Some of it does come across as like, it's a bit hateful, and it's just like, yeah, I'm not really comfortable with that. Like, I personally couldn't be in a band writing lyrics like that. I'd just be like, nah, this is bullshit. Like, I just can't, like, even like reading like the lyric sheets for bands like that, it's just like, oh, okay, cool. You weren't hugged enough as a child. Like,
one of the things that I've just thought about now that you've thought about, like, brought up about the slam bands and stuff, is even in, and this is where I get proven wrong because I haven't researched this properly, even in the old Cannibal Corpse lyrics that were misogynistic, I don't think that they were referring to the victim in a derogatory way. I know that sounds really weird, but in slam bands and stuff, it's like, oh, fucking slit the bitch. And it's always like, she's an animal, cattle, and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was like,
whereas
probably like a couple of passing lines, but not to that extent where it's like literally like paragraphs worth of like, you know, yeah, exactly, like slur and all like sexually aggressive words.
Yeah. Whereas, like, I'd have to bring up like "fucked with a knife" lyrics to, and like obviously the one that everyone brings up is "stripped, raped, and strangled."
Entrails ripped from a virgin's gun.
Yeah.
Probably the worst one, but I think also it's worth noting they had songs like "Orgasm Through Torture," which is about all the violence is on a man and stuff, and you know.
Yeah. Well, here you go. Like, we're saying about it's like, oh, slut, blah blah blah. Stripped. Yeah, I just thought the break bit in "Stripped, Raped, and Strangled," she was so beautiful, I had to kill her. And it's saying that they desire her, but not that she's a slut. This sounds like really backwards justification for it. But there's never anything overtly derogatory towards the woman, as if it's like a vengeance killing.
Yeah.
Or from the way of some kind of personal vendetta against the person, as if they've been slighted, which I think happens in a lot of other bands.
Yeah, especially a lot of like, it seems like a lot of with a lot of slam and stuff, that especially like UK stuff. But it's, yeah, like, I think it's worth noting as well, and the majority of those kind of lyrics on the earlier material, and you think they were still like really young then, and similar to what we were saying last week about generational attitudes and society's attitudes and stuff. It wasn't, you know, things were a bit more, right, I say things were more accepted. Like, the attitude towards women in general was still not very forward thinking then, I would say. You think of like the late 80s, early 90s. It wasn't very progressive.
No.
And by no means would they have been like the worst offenders, like in terms of what we're talking about, like we've just discussed. Yeah, they were like what in their early 20s and stuff, and I think genuinely it's just like, this is just done to shock. It's not a malicious thing. It's like, it's going to get a reaction, and especially at that time, it was like a new thing, and everyone was like, "Fucking hell, this is so like this is insane." It's almost like video. It's like the audio equivalent of like video nasty films,
Yeah, and they I mean, a lot of the like death metal bands and stuff were saying it's essentially audio horror film.
Yeah, and I think it's
it's one of those things where, and we've said about it before, that people don't hate on actors for playing villains in horror films, and they don't think that the actor genuinely believes the role that they're playing, whereas it seems that if you're doing music stuff, you believe. Obviously it's different when it's political stuff like what we do in Casket Feeder. It's like, yes, we do believe the stuff that's said in the lyrics, but when it comes to like death metal and stuff, when they're doing all of these like outlandish things, people are like, oh no, they want to do that to you. It's like, no, they don't.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's quite telling as well in terms of like the kind of people they are. Like the older the band have gotten, like, and the longer their careers got on and stuff, it's like they've moved. To be fair, they've moved away from that long before it became something people started kicking a stink up about.
Yeah,
it's not like suddenly people are going, oh, hang on, this kind of lyric writing isn't really alright, and they've suddenly gone, oh, let's stop. But it was well before that, and I think it's just how you grow as a person, and it shows that it wasn't ever like a malicious thing. And also, probably worth pointing out, obviously, the first 4 albums were with Chris Barnes predominantly writing the lyrics. And in 6 Feet Under, obviously I've not followed their career very closely because I'm not really a fan of 6 Feet Under, but all the 6 Feet Under stuff that I've heard, it doesn't really touch upon that kind of content. So I think in the interest of fairness, like, it's not just being like, oh, well, Chris Barnes left, so it stopped. It's like, no, I think you just grow as a person, and you stop being like an adolescent. You're like, oh yeah, maybe we should. It was done for like a shock appeal, but let's do something else now.
Yeah, he's got like the 6 Feet Under stuff is like about serial killers and stuff, but it's not about what's being done to a victim.
Yeah,
it's about like the inner urges and stuff.
Yeah, like a psychological kind of aspect of it, I guess.
Yeah. Again, I can't think of like a full repertoire. I was just seeing, because we said about Kill, and I wanted to look at the album before, and then I brought up the lyrics for The Wretched Spawn.
Yeah.
And it does have rape in it, but it's not to do with someone being raped. It's the fact that it's called The Wretched Spawn. It's about the demon baby in it was conceived of rape, which again, I guess you can flip that both ways. Oh, they're talking about rape again, or the fact that it's about demon spawn baby.
I think the thing is, it's like it's one line, and it's not like it's not like this. It goes into detail about the act. I think that's the distinction that's worth bearing in mind.
Yeah,
right.
And one of the things I was thinking about as well, in particular, in regards to the cover of this album, Violence Unimagined, is that the perpetrator is a woman. Yeah. Well, for want of a better term, it's a monstrous creature, but a female one.
Yeah.
And I think that might be the first Cannibal Corpse album where the central character is a woman, apart from if you count the woman seppukuing herself in Gallery of Suicide as the central character.
Yeah, actually, I think you are spot on with that. That is true. Yeah, that's right.
I I don't know. I need to look at the full artwork for the bleeding.
The Wretched Spawn, you could say, but kind of different, because that is the birth of like the demon spawn. That's the artwork.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of like the perpetrator rather than the victim.
The bleeding's a weird one. It's just like loads of different kind of.
Because it's like a tapestry thing, isn't it? Like, yeah. But I mean, I sound like a massive hypocrite because I was in a band that had lyrical content that was akin to this. But there was definitely, in my time in the band, there was a conscientious effort to steer it away from gendered lyrics.
Yeah.
So that it was like instead of a she, it was a they.
Yeah.
And obviously the majority of the time that I was in that band, it had a female vocalist, so it's one of those things. Once you get tired with that brush, though, it's quite difficult to shake off. But I guess it's one of those things where over time, shit changes and people kind of realise what is and isn't acceptable.
Yeah.
But obviously, people will do it in retaliation because they know that it pushes buttons. So, but the funny thing is that I haven't actually looked at any lyrics of the album. I'm just kind of going by the general vibe of the titles.
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing, like, when I was listening to it earlier, like, the lyrics I was picking out, there was nothing that stuck out. I was like, oh, that's a bit of a spicy one. It's all, it's all pretty, it's almost like situational rather than, like, about specific, like, oh, this is happening. It's like individuals and detail and stuff. So, like, Surround, Kill, Devour is just about cannibals eating people. And like Ritual Annihilation is obviously about a ritual, like being sacrificed in a ritual. Bound and Burned's pretty self-explanatory. You know, it's the lyrics are more about like the act of what's happening, like creating and the imagery of that.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the lyrics for Murder. So I just pulled the first one up, Murderous Rampage. Because I thought that was one that might be more specific than generalised, like the ritual one. And it's genderless.
Yeah.
So any time that you would think previously it would have said her or she, it's all there, and it's in plurals.
Yeah.
So I'm just skimming. Was it a conscientious thing, or was it just that they just... I don't want to say grew up, because that sounds stupid, but like over time they were like, yeah, I probably should stop.
Yeah, I just think it's like a natural growth, you know, like, and I guess obviously I don't know them personally, but I'd imagine just gauging by being a human being and being like and stuff. I think once you have a family and you have kids and stuff, it probably does like make you look at things like that a bit differently and be like, yeah, maybe not, you know. Like, obviously still make gnarly lyrics, but there's maybe certain things like, I don't really feel like right to be putting I wouldn't feel right about putting that out now, you know.
Yeah. So in the band I was in, the no-go was anything to do with children.
Yeah. That's a whole other kettle of fish. That's one thing I just don't think, even tongue-in-cheek, it's like, just don't fucking do it.
Yeah.
Like lyrics about nonsense and stuff. It's just like, why? And that's a weird one, because it's like, why are you even going to that place to kind of think about to write those lyrics? And I'm not saying, everyone who writes it is definitely a paedophile, but it's just like, it's not even that's not even entertainment. That's just fucking weird.
Yeah, I mean, it was more of a death killing.
Yeah, but even what I mean. Like even that, like anything, it's just like just don't, just don't do it. Like there's plenty of other nasty things you can write about. Like
I mean, the way that I've seen people fall into that trap before in regards to death metal lyrics is like if they're like a home intruder situation.
Yeah,
and it's such a it's such a low hanging fruit to say that like they killed the parents when they found the kid in the bedroom and blah 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 blah. Like it's such an easy thing to make people like freak out.
Yeah.
But you just don't do it.
Nah.
Interestingly, I've just looked at the lyrics for Follow the Blood. It's a military song.
Ah.
It's about war.
Nice.
So, yeah, I mean, there's still some in it, like Murderous Rampage, like Slowly Sawn. Interestingly, I've just skimmed through Slowly Sawn. That's from the point of view of the victim.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they've done that a few times, like a few tracks. I think actually, like mentioned it previously, I think Orgasm Through Torture is through the point of view of the victim.
Okay. Was Staring Through the Eyes of the Dead?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Over Torture as well. So the following song after Slowly Sawn. Literally, opening line, as I lie on a bed of nails.
Yeah.
So, I mean... Another one. The last song on that album as well. 3 in a row.
All from the point of view of the victim.
Yeah. Buried alive, wrapped in skin from another human that is still alive. Why must I die this way? Draped in a bud-soaked covering, my suffering and misery. Well, there you fucking go. And hang on. I was going to say maybe Bound and Burned was from the point of view as well, but it's kind of like toing and froing. So I've just skimmed over it.
In terms of like to kind of take it back to the music and the overall sound of the record, like my touchstones for this in comparison to like the rest of that catalogue, I'd say Wretched Spawn, Vile in some aspects, and also like the Bleeding, like some of the riffs and harmonic choices and stuff make me think of the Bleeding.
Yeah, I would say.
Without it sounding like a rehash of any of that, but I was like, and I wasn't expecting that at all. So I was like, yeah, this is a nice surprise.
Yeah, I don't know what I was kind of expecting. Maybe like Torture, A Skeletal Domain kind of stuff. I knew that it sounded like, even on the first couple songs, I knew that it sounded very different to Red Before Black.
Yeah, that never really grabbed me much, that record.
See, I enjoyed it, but I don't know. It's one of those things of like getting old. I missed A Skeletal Domain completely. I didn't know that it was an album until Torture came out.
Right.
And then they were like, there was another album before this. It was like, oh shit. Or was it the other way around? I can't remember.
Skeletal Domain was after Torture.
Oh, okay. So I heard Torture, but I just completely missed A Skeletal Domain then. Because I heard Kill and Evisceration Plague. and then kind of listen to those. And Evisceration Plague's a weird one, and I think it's mainly down to the production.
Right.
Because it sounds murky. And I think that if Evisceration Plague had the production that this album has, it would sound way better, because Evisceration Plague was a lot of mid-paced stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like that they went for the murky production to kind of make it more like sludgy.
Right, okay.
But I think if they had cleaned out the production so that it was more like Kill, it would have stood out better, I guess. But then I'm only saying this as a production guy, so I don't really know for sure whether it would sound better. You'll never know, because it's not going to be released with the production of Kill. So, but yeah, like, it's for a band that a lot of people say don't change in regards to their sound. I feel like they change a lot more than a lot of other bands.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's very easily kind of identified like eras of Cannibal Corpse sound.
Yeah,
I think there's at least like 4.
Yeah, whereas I feel bands like, not to throw anyone under the bus, but because I've heard songs like in the last few months, Gojira and Lamb of God, like, I feel like their last few albums have kind of, Gojira are kind of evolving, but you hear a song and you know that it's them, kind of thing. And I feel like they're rehashing stuff.
Yeah.
And Lamb of God, in a similar vein, have kind of fallen into they're falling into themselves in regards to what they're putting out, I guess.
Yeah.
Another one that came out today was the new Fear Factory single.
Oh, bloody hell, I didn't even know.
Surprise, surprise, it sounds like Fear Factory.
So what's going on with Fear Factory at the moment? Like, who's suing who or whatever?
So, I don't know if that's still going on. But Bert and C. Bell is on that album.
Okay.
So, it's being put out whilst the other shit goes on, I guess.
Fair enough. So much drama.
I mean, the thing is that, like, in an interview recently, Bert and C. Bell was like, "Yeah, we did the reunion stuff for the money."
Yeah.
So, okay. So, it's one of those things where it's kind of like, well, if you just openly admit that you weren't doing it because you enjoy it and you're just doing it for the money, then don't do it.
Yeah.
So, it'll be interesting to like hear what the rest of the album sounds like. It was a little bit, not to go too crazy on the production, but going from listening to Violence Unimagined to that, the guitar sounded well thin.
Yeah.
Like as if there weren't like enough layers. But it's quite difficult when you're gonna go from like Cannibal Corpse to Fear Factory in regards to guitar tone. So yeah, so the other thing we're all going to talk about, I'll let you take the lead on it again because I've only like skimmed 2 articles on it. So
yeah, so interestingly, we were just talking about potential misogyny in lyrics and stuff. And to make a kind of clumsy segue, misogyny is inherently part of toxic masculinity, unfortunately. And something that's reared its head this week is Kid Cudi did a performance wearing a dress in as a homage to Kurt Cobain, who famously did that a couple of times. And obviously the internet's gone into meltdown about it because all those hard men who aren't offended by anything are really upset about this. That a grown man would choose to wear a dress in public. And it's not so much the issue of that performance in of itself, it's just that broad ranging issue of like, what is masculinity today, and like to what degree can it be toxic, and then to what degree is it what I guess is in what degree is a certain behaviour is like essential as a man, I guess, in a very clumsy way of putting it. But I mean, I'll right off the bat, I'll say, like, if as a man you are upset by another man wearing a dress or any kind of garment, it says more about your own insecurities than anything else.
Yeah. So I haven't listened to any of Kid Cudi's music, and I don't know him as a person or a rapper. So can you give us like a rundown of what his rapping style is and like his background?
To be honest, I'm not hugely well versed in this material either. Like, I've heard a few songs. It's just kind of like, from what I know, and I don't know if his style's like drastically changed, so like, please don't shoot me over this, anyone. Like, pretty much like a lyrical rapper, like modern kind of sounding beats and stuff. Like, I'm going to like 2010 or whatever. Like, but like lyrically, like able, like a good rapper. So pretty much like what you'd expect, like listening to hip hop or rap kind of stuff. Not not overly like aggressive or anything like that, from what I can recall.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting one, I guess. Kind of, I don't want to say anything and like inflammatory about it meaning to be inflammatory, but this is kind of territory when we were talking about DMX and, you know, controversy about some DMX lyrics last week. There's a certain, I guess, machismo, especially in the hip hop community, where shit like that, where stuff like that does get a massive amount of heat. But that's not to say it's just people involved in hip hop who've been like going mad about this, because I think a lot of it isn't. It's like Joe Public on YouTube, who obviously just has a problem with anything like that.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to ask was, because I'm seeing a lot of stuff getting brought up about homophobia, is Kid Cudi gay?
I'm going to check. I don't think so. Again, I might be wrong.
I didn't think he was, but I've seen a lot of stuff about saying that people are reacting in a homophobic manner, and is it because of what they're saying, or is it because he is gay?
I think it's because of what they're saying.
Yeah. Because that's one of the things we were saying about before, is that like transvestites aren't always gay.
No.
Like it's not the same thing. And I feel like that because I'm seeing it being portrayed in that way, that because and in the media this is that are meant to be defending him, that they're saying it's homophobic because gay people wear dresses, and that's not right.
No. I think it's more so just like so many people resorted to like homophobic like slurs against him and stuff.
Right.
I've so many comments to see, and like you can beep this out or whatever, but there's so many people like, oh, you're a faggot and all this stuff, and it's just like fucking hell, like sadly predictable, you know, but doesn't mean it's all right.
Such an easy thing to go for.
Yeah, and you know, and it's immediate like immediately like, oh, because he's got a dress, like he's emasculated himself. Oh, he's like, you know, oh, this is the problem. I've seen like things like this is a problem with society. Like men are too soft. Like you got guys wearing fucking dresses, stuff like this. It's just like, all right, okay, well, not okay, but you know, and it's just like a. Obviously, you can't. It's not an isolated thing just around this event, but there's just so much of that now where. And I don't want to contradict myself with what I'm going to say later, but for the moment, there's this horrible kind of backwards trend of thinking amongst men and like alpha men and stuff. Like to be an alpha male, you have to just be absolutely like you just have to be like a cunt basically, and you can't have emotion, you can't have empathy, you can't have like a soft side or like any kind of like feminine side. And it's just complete bullshit. Like, if anything, like just shutting all that out and like shutting people down for it, to me, that's just like cowardice. If you can't display any kind of sensitivity, like that's like emotional immaturity, personally.
Yeah, imagine being that emotionally stunted.
Yeah, like and just that, imagine that being your default thing. Oh, that's gay. Like it's like, whoa, hang on. Like that's I think that's where a lot of the homophobia element comes from, where what people are calling out, because it's like anything seen as feminine when it's done by a man or soft, like, and I mean that in a positive way, soft, not soft, but it's like, oh, it's negative and oh, it's gay. So fundamentally, you're saying, oh, okay, so gay people are like weak then, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and this has like, and I was thinking about this because Eddie Izzard recently came out as trans.
Oh, I didn't even completely miss that.
And I'm just trying to see if. So basically, she was saying that that she's only like kind of recently come to terms with it, but also the fact that she didn't want to have to deal with the
shit
fallout.
Yeah,
like being a transvestite was bad enough, let alone coming out as trans.
Yeah.
So, and you have to think, to see all of that bullshit about Kid Cudi wearing a dress is almost worse than it's like gone backwards.
Yeah.
Like the general consensus on stuff like this seems to have gone backwards. Obviously, we don't know how it was like in the early 90s because we don't have living memories of that in regards to those issues. But it's, I don't know, it just seems like so toxic. And there's a thing as well now, going back to music, there was an interview with Dave Lombardo recently saying that Slayer wouldn't have survived if Slayer was a band now.
Oh yeah, because of the internet.
Because of the internet, because of the reactions, and that they wouldn't have lasted. They wouldn't have got to the point where they got big because they would have just been decimated beforehand. So it's. I mean, his one thing as well is that I didn't see if there was any other statement from Kid Cudi apart from the fact that it was an homage to Kurt Cobain.
Yeah, I mean...
Also, why was it an homage to Kurt Cobain? Was it his birthday? Or was it the anniversary of his death?
I think it was his birthday recently.
Right.
Yeah, actually. I think it was this week. Yeah, it just says he wore it as a tribute to Kurt Cobain, and I think it was his birthday this week.
Right, okay. One thing I wanted to touch upon in regards to the whole machismo thing, especially in regards to like kind of rap music, and it's not so much. I don't think it's had as much of an influence in American music, but maybe it has. But like dancehall.
Oh yeah.
And how ridiculously homophobic dancehall is as a genre.
Very homophobic and very like sexually aggressive.
Yeah. Even going back to like 50s and 60s Jamaica.
Yeah.
Like pre what we would call ska.
Yeah.
Stuff. And I feel like it kind of stems from that kind of, and then it's just kind of like filtered down and perpetrated itself into like different parts of music, where it's, I mean, dancehall like literally has lyrics about beating up gay people.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's I don't know rap well enough to know whether or not there are tracks about banging up gay people or not, but it just kind of like filters through everything, and when you end up in an area in America that's like dilapidated and you're dealing with a lot of like violent crime, you can't be seen to be what people would perceive as weak.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
because they'll go for the weak link.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't mean this in a derogatory way or I don't want someone to take this out of context because of the situations we're talking about and see that as like it's like I'm using this as a veiled slur because I'm absolutely not. Like you could say the same thing about like poor areas of like in the UK and like Liverpool and like and London and stuff where there's like white and black people. It's like animal mentality. Like you have to be the strongest animal. So look at the animal kingdom. The weak animals get left behind and or killed, and it's that, isn't it? It's survival.
Yeah, even in a professional setting, I can fully imagine that. Disclosure: I used to work in City of London, but doing hospitality. That the older people working could potentially throw other people under the bus, and if there's any way that they can do it, because thinking about their prejudices due to their age, that any kind of non-heteronormative sexuality would be considered as undesirable, and that they would use it as a stepping stone to weaken their position to strengthen their own position.
Yeah.
In a professional context. But yeah, anything. I mean, I'll put it this way. I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but there was like someone at my school just to say about how like crazy different schooling is now compared to schooling when I was at school. One person in my year group came out as bisexual and he was beaten up nearly every day.
Jesus.
Because of that reason.
Yeah.
So I've kind of like completely missed my point about, but there's just like everyone is so ingrained to this thing of don't be different because you're going to be kicked the shit out of if you're different.
Yeah.
And if anyone does have the literal balls to come out, they're hounded on like almost immediately.
Yeah.
And we're talking about this in the kind of context of like lower class suburban areas, or not lower class city areas, but it just seems to be rife everywhere, and because it's so easy to type and provide yourself anonymity, it just flows out of people.
Oh yeah, it's just fucking.
Without
it's just easy
people
target
thinking.
as well, isn't it? Because the majority of people are heteronormative, cis, like white, male or female. So
Yeah.
chances are, if like, and it's awful, right? It is this way. If you chuck out a homophobic slur or drag on someone because like they're homosexual or they're transgender or whatever, just by like sheer odds, like and numbers, you're probably gonna there probably will have more people that would agree with that, whether vocally or like in private. And it's a safe fucking haven, isn't it? Because that's the problem. Like, you see this, and like for every person who calls it out, like directly, you'll probably have another 5 people going after that person. Like, oh, why are you like, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's like pack mentality, isn't it?
And you have to think about the hypocrisy of it as well, because these are probably people that are watching stuff like RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yeah.
But they don't equate it to the other thing.
No.
And I don't quite understand how they don't. It's like if they're if they're watching it through a TV, they think it's fake because it's a contest, and then it's fine. But if they're on Saturday Night Live, then it's not fine.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a real interesting. I think that in itself is a very interesting topic to explore, especially because it's fun that like overall it's the appearance of female. I think there's a lot to be said about that in terms of like the psychological aspect of that, but that's a lot to unpack. But I'm agreeing with what you just said, like 100%. But I think that's a big bearing on it as well, and I think that says a lot about people and their inner desires that they aren't listening to.
I will say almost completely across the board that drag queens are some of the quickest witted people that I've ever met.
Oh yeah.
It's ridiculous. Like,
I guess they get a lot of shit, so you have to be able to throw it back.
Yeah. They could eviscerate you with like 5 words.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. But and there's another thing as well with that, like maybe it's something that it's just like your people are just pre-prepared. It's like, this is what you're getting. They're drag queens.
Yeah.
You know what a drag queen looks like. They all look like drag queens. Whereas like, and here's a performance with Kid Cudi wearing something completely different. He's wearing a dress.
Yeah.
Oh no, what the fuck's going on? I don't understand. My brain can't take it. I must bash my keyboard with both my fists into some nonsensical bullshit about how society's going down the drain.
Yeah, it's just like,
and
it's so weird as well, because you see it a lot from. I see it a lot. I see a lot of like comments from like women as well, like being like, "Oh, this is like what's wrong with men." It's like, yeah, but the direct opposite of the spectrum here is like ultra aggressive male who is more inclined to see you as second class to him and maybe even be like aggressive to you. Like, what? I don't understand your logic here.
But I'm not going to put words in people's mouths, but it's the same thing with like Trump defending women.
Yeah,
like at the rallies and stuff. It's it's not. I was going to say it's an indoctrination thing, but they've grown up in a certain way. They think a certain way. Therefore, even though it's not technically best for them, potentially, I mean, they could find a fucking meathead that treats them very well. I don't know.
Yeah.
But by and large, from what we have witnessed in our lives, people that are like that are normally derogatory and aggressive towards women.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's a reason that the saying, treat 'em mean, keep 'em keen, seems to actually hold water, is because of stuff like that. But the flip side of that as well, like not the Kid Cudi side of things, is the typical like friend zone situation. Where it's like, oh, the nice guy doesn't get it and stuff, and it's like people are complicated, and there are a lot of people, so it just diverges into all of these crazy different things of stuff in regards to preferences and all that kind of stuff.
Essentially, like treat them in, keep them keen, and nice guys finish last. Friend zone. They're two sides of the same coin, which fundamentally boils down to like men seeing it as their right to have any partner of their choice. Like not all men, but do you know what I mean? It's like, well, I've been nice, so I should get this in return. It's like, just be nice for the sake of being nice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Not everyone wants to fuck you, and if that's your only reason for being nice to someone, you're not actually nice. If you're only treating people kindly because you may benefit from it, you're a prick.
Yeah, there shouldn't be an ulterior motive.
No.
But what I was originally saying about that was the fact that nice isn't a ticket.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, be a person, not just a nice thing.
Yeah,
whatever.
People want to look at things in black and white, but everything's grey. It's all about shades of grey. But I mean, in terms of like the core kind of the core point of the whole, I think about masculinity and like attitudes and stuff, and like I think especially in this day and age, it can be confusing to be like, well, where do you stand? And I don't mean this in terms of like how do you treat women and stuff, but I mean personally, as men or as a man or whatever, like what's right and what's right and what's the right and wrong way to be, I guess, within yourself, and like what there's a lot of different expectations from all corners, and it's kind of like, well, what is okay? Like, and I don't mean in terms of like mistreating people and thinking it's your right to everything and whatever, but for example, like let's take an easy one, violence or aggression, okay? So can be very destructive, like to the individual themselves and obviously anyone caught up in that, but I think it's important and I'd say this for anyone, but like I think it's important to be able to defend yourself and stuff, but I do kind of think and I don't want to sound like a fucking meathead or like a knuckle dragger, but I think it's important to be able to like handle yourself, and I don't mean to actively be looking for like fights and things, but I don't think it's necessary. I don't think aggression is always a bad thing, and you can channel that into something positive. Aggressive energy isn't necessarily always a bad thing. And I think this is like when you look at people, like when you look at men who are like very like aggressive, I don't mean like fighting, but like a high testosterone level, like might be like sportsmen or like involved in like they might do combat sport and stuff like that, and those kind of activities. It's like, I do think sometimes I do kind of get where they're coming from. It's like we're made to feel like that's wrong, and it's like, oh yeah, like I think there's a lot of that. It's like, you can't just demonize it just for what it is. It's how it's used. Is what I'm trying to say. Like, personally, I think it's an important thing to be able to harness in a constructive way. Doesn't mean you can just go around going, I'm hard, like I'm gonna be a prick. But it's like, and I'm gonna say something, but I don't want it to be taken out of context. Like, and I don't mean in terms of abilities or like abilities to do tasks or like achieve the same goals, but men and women are different. We are different, and that's good, and that's amazing. Like, and I mean that in the best way. Like, and they can both learn from each other. But I just like fundamental, like on a fundamental level and on an instinctive level, we are different. There's things we share, and I don't think the differences should be used as a point of contention or like, it shouldn't be weaponized. I think it's important to understand the differences. And that, I'm not going into I don't mean that to diminish like the fluidity of gender or anything like that. I just mean if you identify as a man, and you identify as a woman, you were born as a woman or a man, whatever, like, just no question about that. Yeah, there are differences like biologically and what have you, and you could argue that's culture and it's what we've been instilled in us. It's part of it, but I think there are blokes who feel like I can't, and I don't mean blokes who are like horrible to women and like objectify people and like belittle people, but blokes who are just like, I'm kind of an old-fashioned kind of guy, like a bit rough around the edges, and and what have you, like, and some of them do feel like, I guess kind of think that society is kind of shutting that out, and I can kind of understand that viewpoint, because it's even me saying like, yeah, don't be an aggressive prick, you know what I mean? It's just like, well, what do I do then? Like, am I wrong for like being just who I am? Like, and I'm not saying it from point of perspective. I'm not hard by any bloody means. Like, but it's an interesting one. And then I think, but then obviously, if you look at the broader topic, that's where it becomes dangerous, because when people are kind of like uncertain, you get predatory people like, yeah, it is society being against you, listen to me, and you get like men's rights activists and shit like that.
Yeah.
And then I can't speak from the point of view of a woman, but like, women should be able to like do, if you've got the capability and whatever, do the same things as men. And if you want to be like one of the boys and that, cool, wicked. Equally, if you want to be like a girly girl, you shouldn't be treated any differently in terms of like people like thinking any less of you or thinking you don't have anything about you because of that,
Yeah. I think in regards to the thing you're saying about the predatory people, it's an ostracization. There seems to be a lot of people that feel like they don't belong and will just go trawling for anything that says that they belong there.
Yeah, 100%.
Regardless of how initially outlandish they believe it, they will fall into it, basically.
Yeah, and that's basic human nature. Like, as much as individuals might want to deny it, everyone wants to feel like wanted by something.
Yeah.
Like, people are like, I'm a lone wolf. It's like bollocks. You've got some kind of like support unit or like circle. Like, unless you are an actual like psychopath, but like that's just human nature. And yeah, it's you see that's unfortunately, obviously, that's resulted in that kind of exploitation of that need, I guess, has resulted in some horrible stuff, like, you know, like the whole incel thing, and like the violence that has come from that against women and stuff. But I mean, I guess like to kind of actually express what I wanted to say a bit better in terms of like, I think there's certain people might think it's old-fashioned of me to say this, but I do think there's certain things like men should do, like depending on what, like if these are their circumstances, like if you've got a family and stuff, like you should want to be the provider. And I don't mean like, oh, you shouldn't let your girlfriend or your wife work, no, not at all, but you should be like, I need to be able to like steer this through if shit goes wrong, kind of thing.
Right.
You know,
okay.
like you should be, I think as a man, you, especially if you've got family and stuff, it's like you always put them before your needs, kind of thing. And not in a destructive way, but if it means you have to go without, say like to provide for your children or something, that's what you do.
Yeah. I feel like more and more now I'm seeing that that's a joint responsibility for both parents. I
mean, 100% is, but I don't know, maybe I don't. It's strange because it's not even something that from my experience growing up, because both my parents worked.
Yeah.
Like, but I just think yeah, it's just something I feel strongly about. I just like if push comes to shove, like you break your back for it, you know.
I feel like that might be a retort because we know a few people that have absentee fathers. And in my mind, it's more of a thing of don't be like that.
Yeah.
Rather than it being a general consensus of you just do it, it's more of a don't leave your family in the shit.
Yeah.
And fuck off, basically. And you will provide for them.
Yeah.
Like, luckily for me, didn't have an absentee father. You have a good relationship with your dad, even though your parents separated.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. When my parents separated, I lived with my dad.
Yeah.
But, and to be fair, like, even after the fact, like they were still cordial, and they've got, you know, they as much as possible, like they repaired the relationship. Obviously, they didn't get back together, and they repaired their relationship like as like friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a big it's a huge topic, you know, and like for everything you say, someone might be like, no, that's categorically wrong, because it's quite a charged thing to discuss.
Yeah, it's impossible to say a right answer when it comes to family stuff.
Yeah, and oh, some people might be like, oh, that's like what I just said. Some people might be like, that's a really outdated way of looking at it. It's like, it's just how I feel. Like, if someone feels different, I'm not going to say, well, you're fucking wrong. It's just like, it's just how I feel, you know?
I've had a discussion with my family before about things similar, about you must always stick with family. And I can think of occasions, not myself personally, but there are definitely people that I know that were way better off just telling their family to fuck off.
Yeah.
And just cutting them out of their lives and moving on.
Yeah.
And as difficult as that is, if you're in a situation, I was going to say an abusive situation, but it doesn't have to be an abusive situation, but where it's just you don't see eye to eye, they don't. Normally it's over things like sexuality.
Yeah.
It seems to be, or life choices or whatever. And they're not going to reconcile, and it's just getting to a point where it's taking over your life with stress. It's better off to cut them out.
Yeah, 100%.
But I've definitely had, like, with my family, they're like, no. Like, you must stick by your family. It's like, no, in their situation, I think they should have definitely done what they did.
Yeah, and then you
but they don't see it. They like my family don't see it like that. They're like, no, it's your family, it's blood. You have to stick with them.
It's like, well, their family aren't really sticking with them, are they? So it's respect.
Yeah.
Respect is a two-way street.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole blood is thicker than water is bullshit. Like, and I don't say that in a bitter way. Like, I've not really. I don't have that fortune. I haven't had any experiences like that within my family. Like, but yeah, I know people who have. And it's just like, yeah, you shouldn't feel like it's like a sense of duty. Like, oh yeah, I must diminish my own happiness. You know.
Yeah. It's not your responsibility to change who you are for members of your family.
No.
Or to change who you are to be the version of a person that they want you to be.
Yeah, because in the long run, that doesn't benefit anyone.
No, not at all.
Like,
because it humours the bigotry in whoever's kind of persecuting that person, and then that person's living in a shell.
Yeah.
Which goes back to another point I was going to make before about the people commenting about, oh, the society's going to shit about the Kid Cudi stuff, and it's like, no, society isn't going to shit. It's just that people feel more comfortable being able to come out now.
Yeah, and it's like society isn't going to shit. We just don't want you anymore.
Yeah,
we don't want your views anymore.
Because it's always a thing of, oh, it wasn't like this. It's like, no, there were loads of people that were still like this, probably the same percentage, but they were so scared about coming out because it was against the law.
Yeah.
And they could genuinely be persecuted and have their lives ruined by living their true lives. And even now, it's still not, there's still a long way to go. But compared to 50 years ago, it's just night and day difference.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're not at the end of the road yet, but we're definitely further down it.
Yeah, for sure. And, well, we just have to stop it from going backwards, which is the main thing.
Yeah.
And stop it regressing back, because there's definitely danger of that happening at the moment. So you just have to try and hope for the best in regards to that there being a continued push and progression rather than a regression into more I was going to say bigoted, but it's not bigoted, it's just not sure of the right terminology for something where you start removing someone's, like, certain people's civil liberties.
Is that fascism? I don't know.
Well, I don't know really, but it's not good either way.
No.
So it's a concern for sure.
Pretty grim, and you have to look at, like, the reality of things that are going on and be like, is this fascism? Like, question.
Yeah, I don't think that the Western world is at that point yet.
No. As much as some people would argue to toss otherwise, it's like, no, that really does demean, like, people who have actually gone through fascism, like fascist regimes, because we aren't at that point.
Yeah. People need to stop pointing at each other and being like, oh no, you're a fascist. No, you're a fascist. It's like, and just maybe join forces and look at, like, the bigger picture and in regards to the issues at hand.
Yeah.
As difficult as that might be. Yeah, I guess we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, we've had a bit of a ramble today.
Yeah. Wandered through multiple things. If you've managed to stick with us this long whilst we've chatted crap for a little while with no real outcome, well done you. I think I gave a gold star last week, potentially. So You can have a second gold star. You are now a... What's 2 gold stars for a McDonald's staff member? Is that a team leader? Does that mean you can use the chip pan fryer?
Lieutenant at arms.
Well, you can have like a 2-star general if you're talking about the American military. I think that goes up to 4 stars. So if you stick with us for 2 more weeks, you could be like the head of the American Armed Forces.
Sounds about right.
Be a 4-star general. Yeah. At one point in time, I used to know all of the ranks from like private up to
really.
Yeah. Not Navy and not Air Force because they're different for Army, Navy, and Air Force. But I used to know them for the Army. And I think I knew most of the Air Force ones. I didn't know the Navy ones. The Navy ones are weird because it's like Admiral, Rear Admiral, Vice Admiral,
right?
Captain, Second Lieutenant, First, like Man at Arms, First. What's it? Yeah, I don't know.
Boat bloke.
I'm trying. Boat bloke, poop deck sweeper. Loving the poop.
Petition to rename the Navy Boat Blokes.
You should pitch that to Discovery.
The Royal Boat Blokes.
Or just like a merchant ship. You know, like when they do the deadliest catch or whatever. Yeah. For the fishermen. Just like a merchant ship, like going to and from like Essex or something. It's just called Boat Blokes. It's just like a reality TV show of like blokes on a boat.
Snakes on a plane, blokes on a boat.
Hopefully no snakes on a boat.
I think this idea has got legs, personally.
No, the snake doesn't, though. Oh. Weird fact, the most venomous snake in the world... Is it the most venomous snake in the world that it can't bite?
Probably good. It's probably venom? A good thing.
It can't... And it's like the sea snakes are like way, way, way more venomous than any of the land snakes.
Wow.
I need to confirm this now. Hang on.
Speaking of snake venom, the strongest beer in the world is called snake venom, and it's 67%.
That's disgustingly strong.
That's just... Who has done this? But yeah, that's a true fact if anyone wants to look that up on Google.
Is that one of the breweries that was like competing with Brewdog for a while and they kept one-upping each other?
It might have been, because Brewdog did a couple of like proper strong ones, didn't they?
Yeah, there was like them and a German brewery.
Brewmeister. Bloody hell, it's 50 quid.
Yeah, not cheap. But I guess to try and get a beer that strong is just ridiculous.
Yeah. 40 quid for a 330ml bottle.
Yeah, nah, thanks. I'm alright. Okay, yeah, I can't find it. There's definitely something that's like the most venomous of something. And it's like it doesn't deploy its venom.
Right.
And I can't remember what it is. The sea snakes, like there aren't very many recorded cases of like sea snake bites because they're not generally aggressive.
Okay.
Like their temperament is very different to like land snakes. But yeah, on that uncorroborated bombshell, we shall bid you adieu, and we will speak to you all next week.
Catch you later, taters.